Thanks, Roland, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the meeting of the West Dakota Water Development District, September 6, 2023 meeting. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please. Dan?
Okay, roll call. Code.
Here.
Bjerke.
Here.
Driscoll.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
Ackerman.
Here.
Rowe.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Fleming. Care.
Here.
Okay, we have one absentee. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the approval of today's agenda.
Move to approve.
Moved by Driscoll, seconded by,
Yeah.
did you get that?
Seconded by Tom.
Tom. I drew a blank there for a second.
Froze.
I froze. Any discussion on the motion? Pardon? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Hold same sign. Motion carries. Next item is conflict of interest. Is there any, well, we got one item on the agenda. Is there any conflict of interest there whatsoever? Seeing none, we'll move forward to item number 5. We just basically have one agenda item to discuss today, and that's the approval up to a max of $100,000 to complete the follow-on hydrologic and reservoir routing modeling for the Dakota Deerfield system. Ron, do you want to address that?
I can start.
Okay.
There's been 4 of us directors that have been real involved over the last number of months, meeting with the Bureau and city and the Corps of Engineers, and so and also working with developing this proposal to carry on with some additional hydrologic modeling on a follow-up basis from what Rosemary Spillis did in 2019. The information item that's on page 3 of 7, sort of as background, gives you the kind of the thumbnail vision of what we're looking at. And then later on in that packet, there's actually the initial proposal that we got, a letter proposal from Bar Engineering for the scope of work that would be at least initially envisioned for this carry-on hydrologic and reservoir routing modeling. I don't think that's necessarily the final scope of work, but it's what we have right now as we are sitting here today. With input from stakeholders like the Bureau already, and further input from other stakeholders, maybe like the irrigators and let's say the Game and Fish, as we have meetings with them during the month of September, and maybe the city, that scope could be tweaked a little bit, to accommodate some special interest. But that's kind of the basic scope of work that we're looking at to really find out whether or not what Rosemary found in her use of reservoir modeling based on the existing record of releases and inflows to Dakota, that there could be an opportunity to spill less water if we had a little more flexibility in some of the reservoir operating rules. And along with that spilling of less water would also come some additional winter releases for environmental benefits. Maybe some small amount of flood pulse mitigation for some of those regular spring pulses of water where there could be some additional storage space in the reservoir. And then also some additional gains to the municipal water supply if we spill less water. So that's kind of the thumbnail of it, and I guess I'll ask Director Driscoll and Bjerke and Care to speak to some of the other items that have kind of gone along to fill in some of the blanks, other than just this thumbnail kind of umbrella of what we're looking at.
Well, one thing is the $100,000 figure that we've got in here is based on the estimated work required by Bar Engineering to do the modeling, and so the $100,000 is 50% of that amount of money. And so that's where we developed the money. Now, there is a chance, depending on the criteria that the Bureau looks at, that we could maybe just get a grant of 75% and only be 25%, but we don't know that. So that's where that $100,000 number came from. Anybody else want to? Comments from Driscoll or Carrot?
Craig's been real involved in talking with the Bureau, all volunteers, both at the local level with Ginger and Roger, right? Ron. And, oh yeah. Yeah, we switched hats. And also with the lady who manages the Water Smart grants for this regional area. And so we've gotten a lot of really good input from her on things that we need to be real cognizant of as we, try and develop this grant. But as Dan indicated, if we can do a good job, or we can coach Barr to do a good job, we might be able to get a 75% grant because they'll allow that with environmental benefits. And so with that increase of winter flows that's potentially available, that's a big environmental benefit for that whole Rapid Creek system, all the way from Pactola, basically all the way through town and even below, for Biota. And then that could come along with a different release schedule from Deerfield into Castle Creek as the system is managed as a whole. So there's a real good chance that they'll look at, if we do it right and our cards align right, environmental benefits will be acknowledged.
Yeah. We have met twice with the city of Rapid City. The first meeting we met was with their engineering staff and their new water superintendent and so forth. And also there was a couple of women there that were in their grant writing program were also present at that meeting. So we presented our case to them. And then we also had said, I had met with the mayor's office down there because we wanted to meet the new mayor and introduce ourselves as an organization and to discuss this proposal. So the second meeting we had was with the mayor, the new mayor, and then Dale Tech, the public works director, was at that one. What we basically asked them was to give us a letter of support for proceeding with this grant application. We have not heard back from them yet at this meeting anyway, or at this point. So we're still kind of waiting to hear back from them.
And then you sent some stuff over, Ginger or Ron, that indicated, some highlights in that grant is that it was going to need to be more than just a letter of support. It was going to have to be, even if they were contributing no money other than review time, in kind, which is eligible for grant match. They needed to be sort of a partner with us in order to get, the maximum effort at or potential of getting the grant application approved. So that's in their hands right now, and I guess I'm a little surprised personally that we haven't heard back from them since they've known a lot about this. Dale has known a lot about this for many years, and there's been 2 specific meetings as early as August 21st.
All right.
So it's a little surprising that they haven't responded.
I guess the other thing about what we're trying to do here is really look at management of those 2 reservoirs, the 2 biggest principal surface water storage facilities in our district, covering all the way down to the Cheyenne River. And to date they have some basic models that they use, basic spreadsheet type things, but this is a much more comprehensive model that we'd be preparing here, along with some predictive capabilities that would help manage this water, which is going to be important for the growth of Rapid City and the areas around it for the future. And I guess I look at this project as probably pretty key to use that water as effectively as possible, and maybe even be able to tide us over if we can figure out some better management scheme until Missouri River water or whatever else comes along. And I noticed that Mark Anderson was here and was talking a little bit about some depletion in the Madison aquifer that he was concerned about. Talked about that at the hydrology conference as well. So the best management possible on surface water, I think we need to really consider that in put some effort into doing that.
Any other comments? Dan, Driscoll, do you have any input as to what we discussed at our meetings and so forth?
Nothing to add?
Okay.
My understanding is that this model then would identify means or times when additional releases could be made, as opposed to simply allowing the water to remain in storage? Is that the end result we're looking at here?
I think we're looking at, if you read or looked at any of the little short presentations, that are on PowerPoint that are around, or else even in more depth, that Rosemary's thesis, what she identified was the fact that with a little bit of change in operations, instead of trying to focus on basically 4 feet down and maybe once in a while 4 feet up, during an extreme event. If we had a little more flexibility in there could be a way to store some water for these flood pulses, and also release some more water, into the time of the year when we do need more water in the system than is currently being released now.
And the end result would be up to the Bureau to accept whatever the model showed?
Yeah, well, this is really, and we've got a whole PowerPoint presentation from BAR where they kind of really took a hard look at what Rosemary did, and just like all models, there are certain assumptions that were made and certain parameters that were input that were more general in nature than maybe they would like to see if we're going to do a better job of it. So the model that they would develop would be much more rigorous. It would involve some field data collection actually on cross sections of the stream to help with understanding the routing versus just assuming that there are certain slopes and certain ways that the creek channel is formed, certain roughness coefficients. It would also be developed with a different software package that the Bureau uses. She used something called HEC Res Sim, and the Bureau, at least in this area and maybe all over the country, uses something called Riverware, which is an entirely different model. So in order to really work with the Bureau on this, it has to be done in a different modeling program than what Rosemary did.
But we still have no guarantee if the end result of this will amount to anything. The Bureau could just say, well, thank you very much, we're going to continue on our own.
This is an investigation. This is an investigation to see if what Rosemary put forward is real, and if we can, try and work with the Bureau and the other stakeholders to make modifications. So it's an investigation. We're trying to learn some more. We're not trying to do anything right now.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
So when you're doing this modeling, how far back time-wise do you go, and how long will it take to do this?
Well, they'll use the same kinds of periods of record, since the reservoir was closed. So they'll use that in terms of, and the releases that were made historically in terms of the routing. But one of the components that will be added that was not a part of Rosemary's thesis work is that they'll add a hydrology component. So they'll also develop, the hydrology that's based on these wet-dry periods over time and what's coming into the reservoir to link to the release schedule. So there'll be a pretty big difference in terms of what they'll be doing in terms of modeling versus what Rosemary did. And then I'm guessing, as we look at, more specific elements of it, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but they'll also probably do some simulations, like Rosemary did, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of simulations in different iterations to try and figure out what might work. And she'd come up with, I think 7 or 8 alternatives, that might be possible. And of those 7 or 8, there was one that looked promising.
I think your other question is, if we apply for this grant and we get the grant from the Bureau, I believe we have a 2-year time period to finish the modeling.
Okay.
And we're assuming BAR is going to do that modeling?
Well,
Have we already committed to them, or you guys have already committed?
the only commitment we've made so far is the $7,500 to do the application.
Yeah, we haven't committed to do the modeling, with VAR. They've been willing to put that forward to help us scope the project, and help the Bureau in particular, understand what we're trying to do, so that if they see things that they want included in that effort, that they can, make sure that those things are included, so that the output from VAR, or if we were to hire a different consultant, would be the most likely to be, matching up with their needs, in terms of using it for future consideration of reservoir operations changes.
Who else is putting money on the table to go towards match? The city isn't, I gather.
Well, we don't know right now, and we kind of decided that we're going to take the lead on this application. But we're hoping that we get other stakeholders, if we get this grant approved, to help with the match.
We anticipate that there'll be a minimum of stakeholder input from the city on in-kind match, even if they just say they're going to be a non-cash partner. That in-kind is part of the grant match, and then it's actually, this whole effort in kind of a general way is in the 5-year strategic plan for the game and fish, because they're interested in those environmental flows. So we see a strong likelihood that they'll provide match. And then because of the interest of the sport fishing community, the Black Hills fly fishers are more than likely going to provide both of those cash match.
Mr.
Chair?
Just a second. Anything else, Scott?
The city is the big beneficiary out of this, though?
Well, they're probably the largest water user. Yeah, I would say yes.
I would say the city is the biggest beneficiary. Go ahead. I got a comment on that.
I'm going to throw a little different perspective on this. This always seems to get passed over, and maybe it's all intuitive to everybody, but the real end game on it is that the infrastructure at Pactola, basically the release valving, is such that when they're at full pool is kind of the measuring point, but they are able to release either less than 18 cubic feet per second or more than 35 cubic feet per second. There's a dead spot in between there, and to retrofit that valving would cost many millions of dollars. Was it something on the order of several hundred million was a guess, or?
I don't have an estimate.
Very, very large number. So it really, there's been a desire for that, and it's not so much for the benefit of the city, all these little side spins. The real desire has been to be able to release in that range for wintertime releases. One of the things that happens in the outcrop of the Madison-Minnelusa, there's a loss zone, as is typical around the Black Hills. I think the USGS estimate we'd come up with was something on the order of 12 or 14 second feet. So if they're releasing 18 or less than that, if the pool is down some amount, you're left with 6 or 5 or 4 cubic feet per second. As soon as you get into the cold part of winter, Rapid Creek starts making ice, lots of ice, and you can freeze up the entirety of that flow to where, I guess, I don't know if you'd say it's necessarily totally dry there. There may be a little trickle, but there's not much for fish habitat in there. And so there's really been a desire to be able to release more water in years when you're able to. If you've got years like when Pactola was initially constructed, what was the first year of storage, 1956 or so?
A little earlier than that, I think.
Anyhow, they did not fill the reservoir until I think it was May of 1962. We're in the drought of the 50s, and so in periods like that, you would not be able to release additional water. Then in years when you've got abundant water, there's plenty of water, you could be releasing more than that bare minimum amount if you were able to. But right now, your only options are either basically they call it the bypass, 18 cubic feet per second or less, or step up into the larger valving. And then there's always the concern, well, what if we don't fill the reservoir? The irrigators don't like it, the city don't like it, so the real purpose of this, this Rosemary Squillis thesis identified that in many years we've got sufficient water that we could operate it differently. This Water Smart program is basically a stepwise process by which we may possibly be able to achieve the end game of retrofitting the valving, but in order to do that, everybody needs basically a more sophisticated evaluation tool to determine, do we really have the water to work with? Is that going to happen often enough that it would justify spending that kind of money on a retrofit? And so, really, to me, the purpose of what we're doing is not coming up with a modeling tool. This is just the next step in the process by which we may be able to eventually achieve a retrofit for Dakota.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, to speak to your question, Scott, about whether the city is the biggest beneficiary, I think Dan identified some of that. It's the environmental benefits. But it's also some benefits that if we can manage a little bit differently, and again, this is working with the Corps a long time down the road using the new tool, is that we could gain some flood pulse storage. And so we would see some benefits to all those people that live along Rapid Creek, as well as the infrastructure that's along Rapid Creek, when there isn't a requirement to try and basically dump as much water as you can. As soon as it hits, the elevation above the conservation pool and into the flood pool. So we're participating with Pennington County Conservation District, where they're looking for volunteer landowners down there. It's all about erosion when there's high flows. We might be able to ameliorate some of that. And then if Rosemary is right, the difference between what we're average annual spilling now and what might be an average annual spill under a different management scenario is like 3,000 acre-feet. That's enough for 6,000 households of water. So there could be some benefits to all those people in basically out east in Rapid that are starting to become part of the city's water delivery system.
But if I may speak, I'm Rusty with Schmidt, General Manager for Rapid Valley Sanitary District. So, yeah, to your point, all the growth is in Rapid Valley.
All east.
You're right. It's in our district here where we're probably the second biggest water user of surface water other than Rapid. Rapid has an 8 MGD surface water treatment plant. I have a 5 MGD surface water treatment plant. So, the key is, though, what we've been looking for, and I've discussed with the Public Works of Rapid a couple years ago, was, the availability of allowing us to lease some more stored water value, if we could. They have 49,000 acre-feet, I believe, in Pactola, 7,000 acre-feet in Deerfield. We have 600 acre-feet. That's not enough to even sustain our population in the district now. So we all use natural flows. Rapid does, I do, right? Murphy ditch water rights, et cetera, but you're right on the part of it. We need to optimize and utilize our surface water. We got a lot of abundance there and extra. And as you all know, regionalization is a big concept now, right? That we're all working on. So, the district is already doing a project that was through the county commissioners. We received ARPA funds. We got a match from the state, and that is to build a 2 million gallon storage reservoir, connect to Box Elder, to assist Box Elder with their when they need it, as well as the Valley Heights subdivision. That's another area that's in question. We're probably going to take care of that ourselves, the district is, and then move over there and figure out something with Box Elder to solve that problem. But to continue on this regionalization and expansion, this water, if it's being wasted or there's an extra that could be like 3,000 acre-feet, you're talking right at 1 billion gallons of water annually, somewhere right in there, 900 and some million is what that equates to about. So, that could be utilized with our technology of our surface water plant to provide more water for all this growth. We're looking at trying to regionalize, send water to New Underwood and all these initial areas, but the crux on our part is I have enough source water now, natural flows, and we're drilling a well next year, but if there's this much availability of more surface water out there that could be used instead of just letting it go all the way down to the Cheyenne River and all the way down to the Missouri, then we want to pump it back here with several $billion. That's fine. That's a fine idea. I'm on board with it, but that's 30 years out. Why not maximize and utilize our resources now? And we could utilize an extra 3,000 acre feet annually, and then we'd have to expand our treatment plant again, and then we could provide for the region even more so, all in collaboration. But that's kind of why I'm here, just to know if there is actually available more water that we could receive, whether it's a stored allocation through leases or purchasing or however. But the amount that was equated to the district when that was done, I don't know, was it the 70s or I don't remember. If it's that long ago, maybe.
It's part of the 2007 contract.
Yeah, part of that. 600 acre feet is not even close to, if we had to call upon that because there aren't natural flows, it wouldn't be good. We on average, right now with our natural flow water rights and stuff, I mean, we on average, peak days a little over 2.5 MGD a day or somewhere in there, So I'm just here because I'm curious, because I heard that there's a possibility of available more source water, and that could definitely be, it's kind of what we need. I've already met with Rapid on this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and at that time they were not interested in leasing any to the district or allowing us to use any for future growth as well. But when you got 56,000 total acre feet and it's just sitting there, or there is an availability to utilize this, because we got a lot of growth going on. So as Dan knows, out in his area, that's coming, big projects and stuff, which is all areas we annexed in because we can provide for it. But
the number that I used, 3,000, that's the difference between Rosemary's alternative that looked like it might work and the existing circumstances. And again, that's what we're trying to figure out, if that's real or not, with additional increments of modeling, and then we figure out what legal institutional mechanisms go from there, because there'll be lots of them.
Yeah, right.
Ginger, do you ever have?
I guess I would just like to point out, for those of you, and I brought a couple of diagrams if you want, but in Pactola, the city is contracted for 49,000 acre feet, and we have a 6,000 acre foot pool used for fish and wildlife and conservation releases. That's all we have. They've contracted for the majority of the water. And then Deerfield, and Deerfield's an old contract, it was back in the 40s. The city has the first 7,000 acre feet, and then the irrigators have the rest. Like, it can be up to like 8,000 acre feet if we fill. And their availability goes from April to October 1. And then it reverts back. Their pool reverts back to reclamation. We can use it for conservation releases during the winter. If we've released water out of Pactola, people have called for storage water because there wasn't enough natural flows, then we move water from Deerfield in the winter or in the late fall months. So I think you have to remember, we only have 6,000 acre feet reclamation does at Pactola. And that's the question is there more water available when we go through these wet cycles? And obviously what happens in the dry cycles. And I think that's why we're interested in the modeling, to find that out. And since, the Pactola contract was signed in 2007, and it took about 15 years to go through that process to contract. And there was a stakeholder group at that time that met and worked together. I think some of you were part of that.
Ron and I were.
And I were, yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of looked at this spring who the stakeholders are now, and we've got over 20 stakeholders. I think it's increased. And what we found is, in the stakeholders, you have a group of people that make up those stakeholders, but they weren't here when this contract was signed. They weren't here in the negotiations. So they have all kinds of ideas, new ideas, things they'd like to see. And I think that's what we were hoping with the modeling, is we could bring those stakeholders and try different ideas, try to come up to some compromises, because if you have one stakeholder who has an idea, then you got about 5 others who think that's not a good idea. And so you have to get them to compromise somehow. And that's where we were hoping with the modeling too, you could get some results that we could put out there and it'd be easier for people to understand and work through it that way.
Is the 600 acre feet that Rapid Valley Water has, is that part of the 6,000? Or where is that water at?
No, that's part of the cities.
Part of the cities, okay.
Yep. You know, Pactola originally was, there was the irrigators had so many water rights and then the city had. And then with this new contract that was signed in 2007, now it's just with the city. The irrigators only have a stake in Deerfield where they can purchase storage water if there's not enough natural flows in the creek. And so that was a big thing, I think, that now it's more of a municipal and industrial contract. We don't have, they can still sell the district can purchase water from them if they, ran out of water at Deerfield if we're getting a dry spell. But it's kind of like with Rusty. It's, it's not a given thing. And so that's where, trying to manage that 6,000 acre foot pool it's kind of tricky when you get into the dry years.
And as I understand it, the city supplies Ellsworth.
Yes.
Ellsworth doesn't have an independent contractual right in any of this.
Right, it goes through the city.
If I remember right, they have 3,000, up to 3,000 acre feet of water a year through the city's contract.
That's right.
3,000 acre feet a year.
So are we going to know more by our October meeting of what actual contributions will be made by some of these other stakeholders? That's a term I hate, by the way.
Well, the reason we're meeting here is that the application is due by October 17th. So we can't wait till our October meeting to make the decision on what we're going to include in this grant application. We need
2 meetings too.
And we need 2 meetings if we decide to go ahead with this proposed $100,000.
October 8th meeting is when?
10th.
October 10th.
But we should have a good idea by then of other financial or in-kind contributions, because during the rest of this month, we're going to be, focused on getting folks together, because to make a strong grant application, we're going to need, those other letters of support and or along with it, financial or in-kind contributions. So we should have a better idea by our October meeting, but right now we don't have a good idea. We only can say that we're anticipating some.
Well, one thing, since you're here, Rusty, if we could get a letter of support from Rapid Valley Water, that'd be great too.
Sure.
Strikes me once again, we're being asked to use our money to convince agencies to do something they should be doing anyway.
Well, I'd point out too that a large share of our money comes from the tax base in Rapid City, and I mean, this is all.
Yeah, just like every other government agency is funded by the taxpayers. And we're shuffling money back and forth between agencies. Because, well, you don't want to do what you're supposed to. How about we sweeten the pot with $100,000? Will you do it now?
Well, my opinion, the mission, part of our mission is for water development and water conservation.
I don't think part of our mission is to fund other government agencies.
Well, we're a government agency.
I know. We have independent tax revenue. But it's not our mission to take that revenue and use it to fund the activities of other government agencies. That's why I've consistently voted against those sorts of things.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to put a motion on the table.
All right.
Start with the wording in agenda item 5 there to approve up to a maximum of 100,000, unless somebody wants to have different wording associated with the motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ron. Okay. Discussion on the motion.
Well, I guess in response to Scott's question or comments, I guess it's a matter of opinion. I see this as exactly, what West Dakota should be using our funds for. When you get down to what I call the real end game, a need for a desire to modify the outlet works, that's not the responsibility of reclamation. The dam was built, the way it was built, there was a design at that point in time. One could argue, well, there was a bit of a design flaw. That water's under the bridge long ago. We've been living with it all this time. The only way that would ever happen is basically through something akin to this Water Smart System, which is a new program, the last half a dozen years or so that it's come about, and the intent of it's funding that's coming from Reclamation, Department of Interior, to better manage the water resources at the reclamation facilities. And at this point in time, Dale Tech had thrown out a figure at our meeting with him in Public Works. He seemed to recall 300 million or something like that as of a few years ago.
300 million for what?
To retrofit.
Oh,
It was a lot.
it was a lot of money, yeah.
It was a very big number.
I can't remember. the
When
number.
it comes down to if and when that would happen, that's obviously way out of reach for West Dakota. We can't touch that kind of deal, but we very much are in a position to start the process. And we basically, the four of us that had been engaged in these discussions and how do we go about it, to get in an application this year, the only way it would happen is if we would say that we are willing to shoulder the responsibility, if needed, for up to that 50% match. The Director Koth had said the match may be only 25% if it's tied strongly enough to environmental benefits, which I think it would be, but we have to be prepared for a 50%, and to me it boils down to either we jump start it or we wait another year and see if other people will kick in. I would be strongly optimistic that there would be other contributors. I don't think the city of Rapid City would be one of them. I think the Black Hills Fly Fishers would. To me, it's not really important. To me, this really is in our wheelhouse, and I think this is exactly the way we need to proceed.
Any other discussion on the motion? Yeah?
This is just something I'm wondering, this is based on the Rosemary Squillis thesis. How much of that are they really going to use? Are they going to use that data set from the conditional probabilities and the Monte Carlo, or are they just starting over?
They'll be building a brand new model, the way I understand it, in
But this
Rivershare.
isn't the model, this is the data they use in the models.
Well, the data that they used from the reservoir releases and the water years will be identical.
Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
Just more
what
years.
Rosemary used was artificially generated random number type.
But she used historical data.
Yeah, but
Basically.
she created an artificial data set from that was more than that 60 years, if I read it right.
Well, it was based on the hard data set existing, and then running what they call a Monte Carlo simulation, which is a very typical way to expand it. But without a Monte Carlo simulation, I mean, it would be as simple, and we don't have the data set in front of us, but looking at the historic record and just asking the question, in how many cases has the reservoir filled in advance of the May 1 irrigation season, and about how much water have they spilled? It's a typical thing. They struggled to fill the reservoir. It was, I'm pretty sure, May of 1962 when the skies opened up and the drought of the 50s ended, and since then, 1988 and 89 were notably, there was a deficit. Rapid City did not have water conservation measures. The Pactola was drawn down dramatically. It didn't fill, I don't think, in '89. Soon thereafter, again, the skies opened up. We got into the wet years of the '90s, and much more often than not, they are able to spill water before the beginning of the irrigation season, is my impression, Ginger. Do you disagree with that, or is that an accurate statement?
I think you have to get into May and June before you'll see.
Before you actually start. So you're actually into the irrigation.
This year, it didn't happen until July.
Right.
Yeah, which is kind of a weird thing, but.
So maybe I should restate it that much more often than not, there is excess water, not necessarily at May 1. It's typically beyond that.
But you do have those dry years.
We do have those dry years, and you're always kind of rolling the dice as to, can we release more in the wintertime or can we not?
We're making decisions in October and November and we don't know what's really going to happen. We look at historical data. Another part of the modeling, like Craig had mentioned, predictive. The Corps of Engineers is instituting a program where they're putting out weather stations across these watersheds, where they're installing, like up here in the upper Missouri Basin, they're saying about there should be over 500 weather stations. And those will be able to give you snow depth, your moisture, sub-moisture. And so we'll have a lot more information there to be kind of looking at throughout the winter to make decisions also.
So how many of those are in the Rapid Creek Basin? These weather stations?
Right now, I don't know what the number is. I do have a little handout.
There's going to be
here.
some, though.
Yeah.
There will be some.
I have a little handout here.
Oh,
I can
okay.
leave for you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess the more weather information you have, it's going to help.
Yeah.
Manage the watershed.
Great.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn our discussion just a bit to our decision-making process here. Is I think I've got a sense of it, but not 100% clear. At this meeting, we decide yea or nay whether to appropriate up to $100,000 or if there would be some other amount we would approve. We need to do that so that BAR can begin preparation of the proposal. They need some time to do that. The discussion was, it seems like we came to a realization that West Dakota can apply for this grant, but unless we really need a major water provider user such as the city to be a partner with this. It needs to be more than a letter of support. They actually have to be a partner. Is that our understanding?
That's right. That's right.
So if we approve at this point in time, we still have to wait for the city to give us some sort of a nod on partnership before the proposal, the submittal can be made. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we also need a second vote
Right.
from our group on the $100,000
Right.
in October.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
So there's a lot of work to do. This gets us our first step. Actually, we've taken the first step with saying we'd spend $7,500 for bar, but this gets us to the point where, okay, we're saying we can put up the entire match.
Right.
And move ahead with putting together the proposal, and then move ahead, or continue, I guess, ahead with looking at where our partners are going to be, what other financial support we can bring in, trying to figure out, okay, we get 25 or 75% grant instead of a 50%
Correct.
grant. All those things are yet in play.
But we will not push the green light button with BAR until we have a commitment from the city, correct? I mean,
For the modeling, you mean?
right
Yeah.
now, we have voted at a previous meeting to fund up to $7,500, but we have not given them the green light yet, so Mr. Coates looking to,
No, we haven't given the green light yet.
right.
Huh?
Yeah, no, we haven't given a green light, but, and this is kind of a question on the fly that you've just made me think about, and especially after Rusty made some of his comments earlier in terms of their reliance and interest in more water. And maybe this isn't a fair place to put it out there, but I'm not usually waiting around to ask questions. I'd just rather do it right then. He's already indicated that Rapid Valley has a real interest in finding out whether there's more water or not. Are they a viable partner with us, on this effort as being part of the supply chain and a water provider?
You have to have water delivery authority
So that's only you.
for the city. Because they've contracted for the 49,000 acre feet through Dakota.
Okay.
And
And
they have
because
7,000.
Rapid Valleys is part of that.
Right.
Correct.
Same with the Air Force Base.
Yeah.
But we could have the Rapid Valley Water District and the Air Force Base indicate to the city that they're interested in this.
I think they already know I am. Mostly because we've had discussions over the last couple of years of, I tried to acquire, lease, and purchase 1,763 acre feet of stored water. I don't want to use it, only if we need to.
Right.
But so far, eventually we'll get there, I think. But
That's only if you don't have natural flows.
right, only if you don't have natural flows.
I guess with that answer, we do have to have something from the city, and we have to have it very damn soon.
So if the city's not on board by October 17th, it's all.
No, the city needs to be on board this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to turn Bar loose on that grant proposal. They can't do it overnight. They need at least a month.
We thought we were gonna have, the reason we met with the city right away is we wanted to have this meeting, and we wanted a commitment from them that they're on board.
The city is dithering.
And we haven't heard back from them.
You can't make a decision yes or no, apparently.
Well, the city's always been pretty arrogant when it comes to water issues.
And it
Well,
could
they're
be
did-
No, they
for
haven't.
us to make a decision.
I was involved with them for 14 years. Dan?
It's gotten worse, Dan.
Craig,
Dan-
had you indicated something to the effect, I thought in an email, that you had made a connection
I
to
used to,
Tech, or did I
You're
just?
better off.
Yeah, we've sent Dale the information that Ginger had sent us on, here's exactly what the partnership requirement is from Rapid City, so they know what they'd be buying into. We got additional information from Ginger after we had the meeting with them, and we got that to them. So,
Tech's been well
They've-
informed
they've
of
got
this
what they
since
need.
2019.
to make a decision.
Tom's got it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
God,
yeah. So in the big picture of things, approving the 100,000 just shows that we are willing to commit just so that it can move forward. We still need the city. If the city dithers and they don't follow through on this, we have the 7,500 we spent for Bar to write the proposal.
Hasn't been spent.
Hasn't been spent. Okay. So then my next question is, if it hasn't been spent and the city, let's say in November, finally gets back to us and they're like, oh yeah, we'd like this. Can we use what we had approved to contract Bar for the 7,500 and get it wind up for next year? I know we don't want to go to next year, but is that possibility? And then this gets tabled, that 100,000 that we vote for. So let's say we approve the 100,000 for the first vote today. We find out in October the city just drug their feet. We can't get it started. It dies in the October meeting. No harm, no foul on this vote, but we at least get our side of the arrangement moving forward. But then we could possibly, if they come back in November, do you think Bar would still write the proposal for 7,500 for the following year for the 2020?
Is there
First, we
going
have
to
to
be?
know whether we have to find out whether there's even a water smart call.
That's
We don't know if there'll be one.
That's just what I was going to say. We don't
We don't know that. It's here today, gone
Yeah,
tomorrow.
Gotcha.
It may or may not.
There's no guarantee, and it hasn't been announced.
Yeah.
In discussions with Marlena, that's the regional director that you folks have talked with,
Mm-hmm.
we're anticipating there probably will be, but uncertain at this point.
No guarantee.
No guarantee.
Okay.
So the city it really hinges on the city, even if we
Mr.
approve.
Chair, I would like to revise my motion amended, to add at the end of it, contingent upon receiving a commitment from the city of Rapid City in time to proceed with having Barr prepare the proposal. You know, I guess I'm reluctant to spend the $7,500, even though it's a small amount, and then find out the city is not going to commit. I guess what I'm thinking is, if we approve the motion in that format, then that gives us the leverage to, communicate to the city and say, shit or get off the pot. You have to either commit or we have to walk away from it.
Is that okay with the second? Thomas, you seconded the motion.
Well, that's the reality
Or
of
did
it.
you second the motion?
I seconded
You
it.
seconded, okay.
That's the reality of it. We're not going to have Barr spend $7,500 to develop a proposal if we don't have some kind of a sign-on from the city, because it's basically required to have, with their water delivery authority, they're the linchpin on actually investigating this, and it costs them nothing. So, yeah, shit or get off the pot.
So are you in
Pardon my
agreement?
French.
I want to put that in the motion, Dan.
Are you going to, you have to approve
Go ahead.
the amendment.
Yeah. Ginger, did you have some?
Maybe we should just clarify, listen, and Ron can attest to it, he's kind of taken over our Water Smart program, but just, you either have to have water delivery authority or be a partner.
Partner. That letter, what we're called letter of support, it actually is a little bit more than just says they support it. And I think, Craig, we sent you some information. There was three main criteria that the evaluation team, when they look at these grants to make them a viable grant, want to see in that letter. Doesn't have to be monetary support.
Right.
But their in-kind match
Right.
would be fine.
Right.
But I would like to see, to have this be a viable application, I'd like to see those three main categories hit. I think that gives you a better advantage.
See, and just as a point of information, when we met with the tech and the mayor, we asked them for a yes or no on just general support, and we said we would help them with what needed to be in the letter, because they were asking a lot of questions about, well, what do we need to put in the letter about our interest? And so they're looking for that guidance. And so now they have that.
Yes.
So the motion is,
Okay, go ahead.
so the way I understand the motion now is that it's contingent upon the city of Rapid City to be committed as a partner in this application,
Well,
or something to that effect.
we need to have the partner word in there.
Huh?
That's fine.
Contingent upon receiving commitment from the city of Rapid City.
Receiving a partner commitment.
That's what I think needs to be in there.
That's good.
Yeah. So does everybody understand the
Is
motion
that
now?
okay with you, Dan?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We're kind of out of Robert's rules on that.
I thought it was, it was very,
It's an amendment, so.
we made it very clear to Dale and the mayor that, they didn't have to provide the letter, but they had to give us a yea or nay by, it was about Wednesday
Last Friday.
of
Last Friday.
Last Friday.
And so, I guess to me, this is the best way that we can communicate to them that here's what the motion was, and I guess one point of discussion would be, we do not know, will there be a Water Smart program next year? I think that we really,
I think it's an opportunity
Right,
now. The time, we're kind of squeezed for time here, but it's an opportunity.
Once these programs start, they usually become annual. That would be the expectation, but I think it would be good to proceed, and it would be foolish to proceed without the commitment from the city. So I guess if the motion passes, we could talk more about how exactly do we communicate that to them. But
Yeah. Okay, we've revised the motion here, so is there any discussion on the revision to the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Hold same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes with Scott, no, with a no vote. All right. Well, that was the
Where are we
only,
getting this interpretation now that we need to partner with an actual water delivery area?
what was that?
Grant. It's part of the grant requirements.
Because, well, as I read the eligibility paragraph on page 4, I don't see that.
they may be missing some of the fine print.
Yeah, this is just the overview. There is a much more detailed textual grant. This is just like the front page overview on grants.gov. There's a
Yeah.
big instruction in there about, and it's much more detailed.
Well, I think somebody should go into that and look to see whether we qualify as a water district.
We do.
We do.
We do. We do.
Well, if that's the case, then as I read this little thing, we don't need to be in partnership with a water or power delivery authority. Because it says category A, states, tribes, irrigation districts, water districts, semicolon, state, regional, or local authorities, comma, which include one or more organizations with water, power, or delivery authority. So it seems to me we would just simply qualify as a water district. And again, I don't know what
Hey,
as you say what the more expansive rules say, but,
if you go down to the bottom of that paragraph,
yeah.
there about 4 or 5 lines, I think it's 3 or 4 lines up, it says if you're a category B applicant, that's us, you have to have a letter from a category A applicant that says you're in partnership
I
with
don't think we're a
them.
category B applicant, I think we're a category A applicant.
We're not a water district,
West
like-
Dakota Water Development District.
yeah, but we're not a water district like the Water Conservation District in Rapid Valley. It actually has water delivery
Sure, we're a
authority.
different kind of district.
You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong in this, Ron and Ginger, but they're looking at water districts that would have irrigation, municipal water that they deliver.
They're water users.
They're water users. They're delivering to people. Those water
Deliver
districts.
water.
They deliver water.
Are you contracting with anyone in delivering water?
We just
We
talked
don't
about.
deliver water.
No, we don't deliver water.
That's what puts you into the other
That,
category.
those are the water districts that section talks about when you get into the detailed descriptions in the bigger grant.
So we could have done this under category B, like with Southwest School of Mines?
We could, now, we can't. You still need the category A partner. You have to have somebody with water delivery authority to use this grant. It's very specific with that.
We can
You
take the
can't,
lead.
just
like
because you
Bill
know something about
Zuman
water or
did.
have.
We gotta have somebody who has water delivery authority as a partner. And in this case, it turns out to be the infamous city of Rapid City,
Yeah.
or famous, whatever you wanna call it.
You have to have someone who has some kind of water rights or
Yeah.
something that's, who are able to
They'd be
deliver.
much more comfortable trying to get $100,000 from all the other stakeholders than putting 100,000 of our own in and just doing it.
So we've now approved the motion.
We have.
I guess I would suggest the next step would be for our chairman to email
The mayor.
Dale Tech and the
And the
mayor
mayor.
and say that, I guess maybe we can have.
We need to get this in writing form so we can submit that with
So,
the
yeah,
email.
if we get our meeting minutes, we can say, here's the meeting minutes, here's what was approved, and we are now in the position of having to wait until we've got a commitment from the city to partner with us.
Yes.
And we probably should give them a date because we're gonna have to have a certain amount of time for Bar to propose that, to put that
Well,
proposal.
today is, what?
Today's the sixth. You missed a couple.
I'd say the 8th. They've already had 2 weeks to think about it. The 8th.
Oh, there's too much going in town on the 8th.
Oh, I suppose.
So the 8th is Friday, right?
Just tomorrow.
So,
The 8th is Friday.
Tomorrow at 8 a.m. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you know where I'm coming from. I'm tired of these guys.
I don't know if we can get something prepared, Dan, man. I could hand
Ron's got a
deliver it, too.
comment. or some guidance.
I could hand
You
deliver.
gonna write it up, or,
Just, we have to just take the motion.
okay. I could write up, we just give them the minutes of the meeting.
Give her the minutes of the meeting, and then I might just hand deliver that down to the
I
mayor's
would
office.
go. I would show up.
Yeah, I just,
that would be a good
I've been there
idea.
twice. They
I
know
can
me
go there,
now.
I can go tomorrow.
I can go tomorrow too.
I would highly suggest the high importance email and then show up
Yep,
and say,
yep,
per
both.
the email, therefore, they can't really stop you. You have
Maybe
a
we
paper
call and
trail.
tell them we need an appointment with the mayor tomorrow.
Yeah.
Haven't had real good luck with that.
Well, I think we try again.
Try.
Well, I think you start with your email.
Yeah, I do, agree. And then I can hand deliver that down to the mayor's office tomorrow.
Then you do your press release that says we lost $200,000 because of the inability of the city to make a decision.
There you go.
Well, I don't know what
That's
that.
a great
I
idea.
don't know what that guy's name is. Seth Tupper might be interested.
Seth, yeah.
I think he'll be interested in
He's
this
right,
whole
he's
topic.
right next door now.
Yeah.
His whole topic would be very
He's right next
interesting
door
for
to us.
Seth Tupper.
He's right next to our office now.
Yeah, well, that'd be easier yet. City fails to investigate possible yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll play their game.
let's try to
Let's stay on the high road.
say, that's what I was trying
I'm
to
ready
say.
to go low.
I'd rather stay on high road. I got
That's not
time.
low, that's information.
I got time tomorrow on I don't have my schedule full tomorrow, so I do have time to go down and write an email.
And you and Dan are going to write the email in the office very loudly with the door open, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Seth can hear it.
I remember when Pactola went down in the late 80s, as you're talking about, they said it was going to take somewhere between 10 and 20 years to fill it. It filled it too.
Yes.
Yeah, I did,
Yeah. That's happened more than.
yeah.
Ron had his hand up over, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Dan, just a couple
Yeah.
of things that I want to bring to the attention of the board. I think we've talked with them with Craig. As part of the application, we've talked about a cost estimate from the Bureau of Rec on our time. It kind of goes, Scott, I think, to one of your earlier comments. Is this going to be approved by the Bureau of Rec when it's all said and done? Our involvement up front, some of that review stuff up front will aid in that to, I'm not going to say guarantee with a government agency, but we want it to be something that all the stakeholders can live with. As Ginger indicated, we'll find a compromise. And this modeling will allow us to run various scenarios where we can show information at a level that those stakeholders can understand. But to my point is, I think we would go ahead, because of the timeline criticalness, we would go ahead and put that together so you could give that to Bar, because that can be part of your application. And then also, Craig, we've talked to Craig about a letter of support from the Bureau. And I think we would move forward even before you have commitment from the city to have those two pieces in place as part of that application.
Okay,
Well, that'll
great.
be good to know when we deliver this to the mayor, that we've got your support on this deal.
Yes.
Well, and Craig, you kind of alluded to that with our meeting with the mayor too.
Yeah. The mayor asked if Reclamation supports it.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
they were wondering.
he's
We said
aware of
yes.
that you're on board.
We have to send ours up, to be reviewed.
Right.
Oh, sure.
And so it can take a while, so that's, we better go and get that done.
Move that forward.
But that, having us be part of that, reviewing the model, and where you have a cost estimate for us to be part of that, that's how we're gonna end up accepting it. So you have to have that.
Okay. Great.
And part of that also, we were saying it's a grant, but by part of that, getting us to be part of the acceptance is, it would be awarded as a grant, I believe, but then we'd make it a cooperative agreement, is how it's gonna end up being, so that way we can be involved.
That cooperative agreement would be with West Dakota?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
And cooperative agreement then allows for the transfer of money.
okay, got it,
And that's what Marlene has been telling us,
okay.
would be the best way to do that.
Well, we got a little work to do then, tomorrow,
And the rest of the month.
and the rest of the month, Let's see, what else, I think,
But tomorrow.
Move we adjourn?
No.
well, we got,
You got stuff on that.
We got chair's comments. I don't have any comments. Any items from the directors? Yeah.
I've got a couple. I'd sent an email indicating that, we have been preparing for one of these United Way Day of Caring projects up there at our project on Star Village. South Dakota National Guard expects to have 10 or 12 people who can help next Thursday, September 14. Been working with the city some ahead of time to get better access into there. They've actually evicted the local residents have been living there, and they're hauling out garbage today. But for this Day of Caring, I'm not sure how many other entities will have there. I've got invitations out to a lot of regular volunteers and the like, but the city hopefully can provide some people too. Depending on a lot of it may depend on the National Guard, but my intent would be to try to get our work done in the morning and have a picnic up there and be able to provide food and refreshments to all of the volunteers. And I'm not trying to put it on the table as a motion. We kind of went around this block a few months ago, and I guess my approach is going to be that we've got the budget for these sort of things, so it's just my intent to proceed with that unless I hear negative feedback on that. So I don't think we need to vote on doing that every time.
Is this the same National Guard that won't clean up their own mess?
It's South Dakota National Guard, if that's the one you're referring to. And then the other things, these advanced preparations we're doing with the city, we've been a couple of high priority items, and they've been in there basically starting Tuesday, basically improving access and to where they can get in there, get garbage out, and they're going to help us with a certain amount of topsoiling starting tomorrow afternoon and probably Friday morning too. And so far I'm kind of coming up short on volunteers, so if anybody's in a position to help out Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, let me know. It's pretty light duty stuff. They're mostly going to be spreading the topsoil with skid steer. I'll be up top loading trucks, shuttling trucks down, and so it'll be pretty much a little bit of light duty raking and seeding and erosion control blanket. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Any other items from directors? All right. Items from the public. Any items from the public?
No, I think I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
Items from, you have anything, Dan?
No.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.